I served my country with honor, only to be betrayed by my own parents with a heartless eviction threat. So I strategically bought a house, meticulously exposed my deceitful sister, and ultimately became their new landlord. This all unfolded about 18 months ago, and I am still processing the sheer magnitude of the fallout. Settle in, because this journey gets incredibly wild, and the resulting vengeance is deeply, profoundly satisfying. Before we dive in, let me provide some context. I am 26 years old, a former Army infantryman who served for 4 years, including 2 harrowing deployments to Afghanistan during some of its most intense periods. I returned home to Colorado Springs to support my family while I figured out my own next career path. My father was grappling with significantly reduced hours at his supervisory job at the local steel mill. My mother worked a part-time job at a high-end boutique downtown, and my younger sister, Kayla, was on a journey of finding herself after having dropped out of community college for the 3rd time. My days were a grueling test of endurance. I worked in construction, specifically on commercial concrete pours, which is arguably one of the most physically punishing professions imaginable. However, the pay was respectable at $28 per hour, especially with overtime. After my construction shift, I would race across town to work midnight security shifts at a massive tech campus 3 nights a week, earning another $18 per hour. Between these 2 demanding jobs, I was bringing in roughly $4,200 a month before taxes. It wasn't a fortune, but it was solid money, especially considering I was living at home and consistently contributed to groceries and utilities without ever being asked. Or so I believed. That was the established dynamic. Then, on a particular Thursday night in March, my entire world was violently turned upside down. I had just arrived home from what was possibly the most exhausting 12-hour concrete pour of my entire career, completely caked in dust and cement. My shoulders ached with such intensity that I could barely raise my arms. All I craved was a scorching hot shower, and the leftover pizza I knew was in the refrigerator. Instead, waiting for me on my dinner plate was an official-looking letter, the kind that resembles a court summons or an eviction notice. ETHAN Carter was typed in bold capital letters, perfectly centered on fine, cream-colored paper. There was no return address, no handwritten note, no sign that this was from a member of my own family. My father sat at the opposite end of the table, engrossed in his phone, deliberately avoiding any and all eye contact. My mother was at the sink, washing dishes with an unnatural level of focus and concentration, as if she were trying to scrub the very patterns off the ceramic. These behaviors should have been giant, flashing red flags that something truly terrible was about to occur. I tore open the envelope with my grimy hands and nearly choked on my water as I read the contents. Monthly housing agreement. Effective. April 1st, 2023. Monthly base rent, $1,200. Utilities and internet contribution, $350. Food and household contribution, $250. Total monthly payment, $1,800. Payment due date, 1st of each month. Late fee, $100 assessed after the 5th day of the month. At the very bottom, in bold, ominous letters, failure to comply with this agreement will result in a 30-day eviction notice being served. I just sat there, staring at this contract for what felt like an eternity, trying to process the scene unfolding before me. My mind refused to accept that my own parents had drafted a formal, legally styled rental agreement to charge me for living in the very bedroom I grew up in. What in the hell is this supposed to be? I finally managed to ask, my voice strained. Dad finally lifted his gaze, his expression all business. It's time you started paying your fair share around here, son. You're 26 years old, you have steady employment, and a regular income. My fair share, I questioned, holding up the document like it was evidence in a murder trial. $1,800 a month for my childhood bedroom that still has Pokémon posters on the walls and a twin-sized bed from middle school. The market rate for a private room in this neighborhood is around $1,200 a month, Mom chimed in, still aggressively scrubbing the same plate she'd been working on for the past 5 minutes. Plus utilities, internet, and food. We're actually giving you a substantial family discount when you really think about it. I looked around the dining table, a storm of disbelief and anger brewing inside me. So, where exactly is Kayla's official rental agreement? Did that one get lost in the mail? The room fell into a heavy, deafening silence. Kayla is going through a very important transitional period in her life right now, Dad replied, his words slow and deliberate, as if he had rehearsed them. She's working extremely hard on building her online business venture and establishing her brand. Her online business venture, right? What he actually meant was that she was raking in an obscene amount of money on platforms like OnlyFans and Instagram, posting explicit content for lonely men, all while living completely rent-free in our parents' house. I had personally seen the constant deliveries of expensive shopping bags from designer stores. She had bought a brand new BMW with cash just last month. The expensive professional ring lights and camera equipment had become permanent fixtures in her room, consuming nearly half the space. Meanwhile, I was breaking my body for over 60 hours a week doing manual labor, and they wanted to charge me more than what most people pay for an actual one-bedroom apartment in a nice complex with a pool and a gym. This is completely insane, I said, struggling to keep my voice from shaking with rage. I've been helping with groceries, utilities, and household expenses. I've been contributing without anyone ever asking me to. That was voluntary assistance you chose to provide, Mom said, her tone cold and businesslike, a tone I had never heard from her before. This is an official rental arrangement with clear terms and expectations. But Kayla contributes nothing. She orders expensive food delivery every single day, uses more electricity than the rest of us combined with all her equipment, and I've never once seen her buy a single grocery item or pay a single bill. Kayla's situation is completely different, Dad stated firmly, ending the conversation. She's investing in her future and building something meaningful. That night, I lay in my tiny twin bed, the same one I'd had since 7th grade, staring at the ceiling, trying to wrap my head around this profound betrayal by my own family. I had served my country honorably. I had worked myself to the bone every single day since I came home. I never asked for a handout. I always gave what I could, and this was how they chose to repay my loyalty and sacrifice. I opened my laptop and started a new Excel spreadsheet. I named it Financial Documentation Carter Family Exploitation Analysis, XLSX. If they wanted to play business, I would show them what real strategic planning and documentation looked like. The first month of paying that extortion fee nearly broke me, both financially and emotionally. After taxes and the mandatory $1,800 payment, plus my own basic expenses like gas and car insurance, I was left with about $600 for the entire month. I immediately reverted to a diet of rice and beans, just like in basic training, stopped going out with my army buddies, and picked up every single extra shift I could get at both jobs. But the military teaches you one thing exceptionally well: always gather comprehensive intelligence before making a move. So that's what I started doing with obsessive precision. I began documenting everything. Every utility bill I could secretly photograph. Every grocery receipt for items I bought for the house. Kayla's daily $80 sushi orders from DoorDash. Every single Amazon package that arrived for her, sometimes 4 or 5 in a single day. What I uncovered made my blood boil. Our house was a modest 1,400 square foot ranch. I spent hours researching comparable rentals. Entire 2-bedroom apartments with pools and gyms in the same area, rented for between $1,400 and $1,600 a month. My parents were charging me $1,800 for a single room with a shared bathroom. But that wasn't even the worst part. Through a coworker in construction who specialized in HVAC, I learned the true utility costs. He estimated our combined electric, gas, and internet should be around $300 a month, tops. I was being charged $350 just for my share. Then there was the food contribution scam. I tracked my own consumption versus Kayla's. She lived on expensive takeout while her parasitic friends raided the groceries I bought. I was paying $250 for food, while she easily spent over $600 of her own money on delivery alone. Money that was clearly not from some transitional period budget. The absolute breaking point came when I saw her Instagram post. A new $3,000 Louis Vuitton handbag, professionally lit with the caption, "Treating myself. Blessed entrepreneur boss babe living my life." That night, I did some deep dive internet sleuthing. I found her OnlyFans account. It was as disturbing as you can imagine. Using some basic math, I estimated her monthly income. Between subscribers, premium content, and tips, she was easily clearing $15,000 to $20,000 a month. My sister was earning more in 1 month than I did in 5 months of backbreaking labor, and I was the one paying rent. I added a new tab to my spreadsheet. Kayla's estimated income versus household contributions. The numbers made me physically sick. 2 months into this nightmare, I discovered something that pushed me from anger into pure, cold fury. I was checking my credit card statement and noticed a slew of charges I didn't recognize. $340 at Sephora, $156 at Victoria's Secret, over $400 in food delivery charges, a $79 monthly subscription to a content creation platform, $67 at a nail salon, $156 for Ringlight Pro Studio equipment, all on my card, all completely unauthorized. When I confronted Kayla, she didn't even look up from staging a photo of a smoothie bowl. Yeah, like maybe once or twice for emergencies. An emergency. Was $340 at Sephora an emergency? I needed professional-grade supplies for my content. It's a business expense. I'll write it off on my taxes. Paid for with my money, without my permission, that's fraud, Kayla. She finally looked at me, rolling her eyes. God, Ethan, you're so dramatic. It's not like you can't afford it. You basically live here for free anyway. For free. While paying $1,800 a month. When I brought the theft up to my parents, Dad's response was, "You two need to work these sibling disputes out like adults." Sibling disputes. He equated felony credit card fraud with arguing over the TV remote. That night, I went through 6 months of statements. The total fraudulent charges came to over $2,800. The final, gut-wrenching discovery was a $500 charge to a high-end photography studio downtown that specialized in boudoir photo shoots. She had used my credit card to pay for professional photos for her OnlyFans. I was subsidizing my sister's adult content career while she lived for free, and I was being bled dry. I started to file a fraud dispute with my credit card company, but then stopped. That was a direct attack. I needed a smarter, long-term strategy. I opened new browser tabs and started researching asset protection, LLC formation in Colorado, and real estate investment for beginners. If my family wanted to treat me like a business transaction, I would become a master businessman. On a Tuesday lunch break, I drove to a credit union in a different part of town and opened a business account. I created Rodco Holdings LLC, named after our family surname but generic enough to fly under the radar. I funded it with a $1,200 safety bonus from work. My spreadsheet evolved into a full-blown intelligence operation. I expanded it with tabs for every financial detail of their lives I could observe or uncover. I soon discovered Dad wasn't on reduced hours at all. He was still working full-time. Their combined income was solidly middle class. They weren't struggling. They were financially irresponsible. Dad had a gambling habit at a nearby casino, and Mom was sinking money into an MLM pyramid scheme. They weren't charging me rent because they needed it. They were charging me rent to fund their bad habits and Kayla's lavish lifestyle. I began learning about real estate from my foreman, who flipped houses on the side. "The key to this business," he told me, "is having better information than the other guy." I took that to heart. 4 months into the rental nightmare, my foreman gave me the opportunity of a lifetime. A 3-bedroom house on Maple Street was going up for public auction. The owners were in a messy divorce and needed to sell fast. The auction estimate was $180,000 to $200,000 for a property easily worth $280,000. It needed about $30,000 in cosmetic work, which we could do ourselves. He proposed a partnership. I provide the capital, he provides the expertise, and we split the profits 60-40 in my favor. The numbers worked. More importantly, it was my path to power and freedom. Thanks to my military service and savings, I secured a pre-approval for a $200,000 investment loan through Rodco Holdings LLC. The following Friday, my foreman and I won the auction with a bid of $185,000. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of control over my own destiny. The next 6 weeks were a blur of intense labor. Every evening and weekend was spent renovating that house. New floors, new paint, a completely remodeled kitchen. I did most of the work myself, pouring my anger and frustration into every swing of the hammer. My parents barely noticed I was gone, too busy enabling Kayla, who had now launched a confidence-coaching business on top of her OnlyFans, charging women $500 for consultations. She was now likely earning close to $25,000 a month, still rent-free. But I was documenting it all. Then a conversation with our elderly next-door neighbor dropped a bomb. "Are your parents getting ready to sell the house?" she asked innocently. She had seen a real estate agent taking photos and measurements the week before. My stomach dropped. I did some research, found the agent's name, and called her office pretending to be a buyer. She confirmed it. My parents were planning to sell the family home out from under me without a word. I called my foreman. "How fast can we get our rental property ready?" "2 weeks, max," he said. "Why the sudden rush?" "Because I think I'm about to be homeless." We worked around the clock. The following Friday, the house was finished. We listed it on Saturday morning. By Sunday night, we had a dozen applications. We chose a young professional couple who offered $2,400 a month, more than our asking price. As we signed the lease, my foreman clapped me on the back. "Congratulations, partner. You're officially a landlord." But I wasn't thinking about profit. I was thinking about the final phase of my plan. I moved out on a Wednesday morning while everyone was out. I had been moving things to a storage unit for weeks, so it only took one trip in my pickup truck. On the kitchen table, I left my key and a single typed note. "I am terminating my rental agreement with this property, effective immediately." As per our agreement, the final rent payment was processed on March 1st. All utilities registered in my name will be disconnected within 48 hours. All future communications should be directed to Rodco Holdings, LLC, P.O. Box 2847, Colorado Springs, Co. Sincerely, Ethan Carter. Cold. Professional. No room for argument. But my research had uncovered more than just property values. I knew my sister had never declared her massive OnlyFans income to the IRS, over $200,000 in unreported earnings. A federal crime. She used our parents' home address for her business, making them potential accessories to tax fraud. And running a commercial adult entertainment business from a residential property violated numerous city codes and HOA rules. I didn't report them immediately. I waited. After I was settled and completely independent, I made a series of anonymous phone calls over the course of a week. To the IRS fraud hotline, to the City Code Enforcement Office, to the Homeowners Association Board. I provided them with detailed documentation for everything. 2 weeks later, I got the call I was waiting for. It was my dad, his voice tight with panic. "Ethan, we need to talk immediately." "I don't live there anymore, Dad," I said calmly. "You can schedule an appointment through my business email." "What? Ethan, this is serious. We got some official letters." I knew exactly what letters he meant. An IRS audit notice for Kayla. Code enforcement violation notices with massive fines. HOA penalty documents totaling thousands of dollars. A cancellation notice from their real estate agent due to legal complications. I agreed to meet them at a coffee shop that Saturday. They looked like they had aged a decade. I sat across from them in a crisp button-down shirt, a folder of documents on the table next to my coffee. "So," I began, "what seems to be the problem?" Dad slid a thick stack of government letters across the table. IRS audit, city fines, $15,000 in HOA penalties, a notice that their homeowner's insurance was being canceled due to unreported commercial activity. "We don't understand what's happening," Mom pleaded. Maybe you could move back home." She offered desperately. "Help us with this. We could adjust the rent." I feigned consideration. What kind of adjustment? We could lower it to $1,500, Dad said quickly. Maybe even $1,200, Mom added. I let the silence hang until Kayla burst out. This is ridiculous. Ethan, just help us. I can pay whatever stupid fees these are. Actually, I said, opening my folder, that's a big part of the problem. I laid out printouts of everything. Her bank statements, social media posts showing her using their house for her business, the city ordinances she'd violated, the relevant sections of the tax code. Kayla, I said, my voice level, based on my calculations, you owe the IRS approximately $78,000 in back taxes, plus penalties and interest. The city fines will total around $25,000. And since this all happened at Mom and Dad's address, I turned to my parents. You are considered legal accessories. The IRS can seize your assets, the house, cars, bank accounts, retirement, everything. Kayla stared at the papers, dumbfounded. But I didn't know I had to pay taxes on that. Ignorance of the law is not a defense, I stated. But there may be a solution. Hope flashed in my father's eyes. What kind of solution? You need immediate cash to pay these debts. You need business expertise to navigate this, and you need to restructure your finances completely. I pulled another set of documents from my folder. Rodco Holdings, LLC is prepared to offer you a comprehensive debt management and property acquisition package. My proposal was simple and devastating. Rodco would buy their house for $220,000, just enough to clear their mortgage and initial tax payments, but well below market value. They could then rent the property back from my company. Kayla would have to cease all her online activities immediately, get a real job, and all her future income would be managed by Rodco to ensure her tax debts were paid. My parents would keep their jobs, but their finances would be placed on a strict budget that I would personally oversee. This is insane, Kayla screamed. You want us to pay you rent to live in our own house. It's not your house anymore, I said softly. You're about to lose it to the IRS anyway. This way you get to stay. How much rent? Dad asked, his voice a whisper. $2,200 a month, the current market rate, plus utilities which you will pay directly. That's more than you were paying us, he sputtered. No, I corrected him firmly. That's what you should have been charging someone who could actually afford it, instead of extorting and stealing from your own family. I stood up and gathered my papers. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, you're on your own. They called me 6 hours later. They accepted every single term.